Alan Wake 2 is finally here, which I was going to make this video days ago, but I kept just procrastinating because I wanted to play the game even more. And before we get into some of the real things I wish I knew sooner, one major one is that although Alan Wake 2 can totally be played without playing any Remedy game prior to it, I highly recommend playing or at least watching a summarization of the story for the original Alan Wake and Control. You don't need to play those, but you're going to be more into this world that way. If you have the time, definitely play them. Last I checked, they're on a pretty deep sale right now, or play Alan Wake 2 and then check those games out afterwards, then you might be inspired to come back and play it again. Alan Wake 2 is probably the best looking horror game I have ever seen, and a huge part of that is thanks to NVIDIA's partnership with Remedy Entertainment. So thanks to NVIDIA for sponsoring this video, who just want me to show you guys the best settings to use in order to get the best possible quality while simultaneously giving you a giant boost to performance. The reason that this game looks so good, especially on a 40 series graphics card, is because of the implementation of full ray tracing or path tracing, along with DLSS 3.5, ray reconstruction, and frame generation. Not only do these features make the game look way better, but they give you a massive boost to your frame rate. And to turn them on, all you have to do is head into your settings, go over to the graphics tab, and make sure that you have DLSS toggled to on. Right under that DLSS option, you should see a frame generation option, which having this on honestly makes a big bump in your performance. And by the way, frame generation is a DLSS 3.5 feature that's only going to be available with the power of a 40 series graphics card. Using this feature will keep your frame rates really high, even after enabling the game's full ray tracing and using everything at ultra settings. So if you have a 40 series GPU, definitely toggle that on. If not, it should be grayed out. But don't worry, you can still use the ray reconstruction feature down at the bottom in the ray tracing section to give you a good visual bump as well. It's recommended that you have all three of these options on if you're using a 40 series graphics card in order to get the best possible quality and performance. But also, obviously, you're going to want to have ray tracing on as well. If you're using the 4080 or 4090, you should be using the high preset. I've spent the majority of my time playing on a 4090, and again, the game looks incredible. I was playing at 4K. I don't think I dipped under 120 frames per second at all. It's hard to say that I'd be as absorbed into this game as I have been without the crazy graphics and performance that I get from a 4090 paired with DLSS 3.5 and the features that come along with it. Like prior to DLSS 3.5, I didn't even think it was possible to get this next gen level look playing at 4K and simultaneously not dip under 120 frames per second. It's pretty crazy, and it makes it feel like an actual next gen game. And there you go, you shouldn't really have too many issues, especially with a 40 series graphics card, if you did follow those steps. Thanks to NVIDIA for sponsoring this video, and thanks to Epic Games and Remedy for sending over a copy of Alan Wake 2. So outside of those settings, if you're on a PC and have a lower end PC, your biggest issue when playing any new game is optimizing it. There was a little bit of controversy with this game's optimization back before release, but when you actually play the game, there really is no reason to hate on it. Even on something like the medium preset, which is probably what a lot of you guys should try playing on, it seems like one of the best settings that most people's PCs can handle. And still, even though it's lacking some of those newer features that we just went over that do take it to a higher level, without a ray tracing setting on, the game still looks beautiful. So you'd want to place most of these settings at medium. Texture quality I would mess with afterwards to see the highest that you can handle. If you have a 30 series GPU, I played a bit on my 3080 and was actually able to use most of these settings on high while some of them were still on medium with a high texture quality as well. But you're going to have to mess with it and see how much more VRAM your GPU can handle using. I noticed that these settings, volumetric, spotlight quality, and the global illumination quality, having them both set to low made a pretty good difference in performance without it taking too much visual quality away. The object settings down here also could improve your performance quite a bit, and you'll likely not even notice the difference that it makes with the quality. They're kind of like finer detail things, but all around, either using the medium preset or adjusting them a bit to these settings here seem to be the two most optimized settings for most people. Feel free to go with this and then lower anything you're having issues with. Like I said, lowering the texture quality might help as well. I thoroughly believe though that in most games, even with a high-end PC, you do not need to use the ultra textures option, because it usually makes such a tiny difference compared to how much more it requires it to use. And in Alan Wake 2, medium texture quality gives you a good boost to performance while still looking really good. So now for some of the actual gameplay, let's start off with some basic combat tips. The combat isn't super complex in here, but I have seen people complain about specific enemy types or scenarios, so most of the sections of the game can be done without even really fighting. A lot of the enemies that you see, you can just sprint past, especially these shadow enemies who can usually just be all around ignored. If they get close, you just shove them, but even though you'll notice so many of them around, they can just be all around ignored. I've noticed that having the flashlight off makes most of them, if not all of them, seem like they're not even there since you can't see them. But if you have your flashlight on, just don't get too close and they usually won't even interact with you. For the wolves, the best time to take those guys out is when they're far away, since they sort of sit still and then take a few steps towards you before dashing at you. So before that dash, a nice crossbow bolt or rifle shot will take them out, or I like to wait till they dash and then take them out with a shotgun shot. That way is a little more risky since there's not a huge window of opportunity there once they do dash at you. But other than that, you have the main enemies that look more human and they all have weak spots for most of them. Using your light charge and then a headshot or a shotgun blast usually kills all of them in one shot too. For some of the upgrades, I really didn't upgrade much of Saga's gear. I think you can get through this game without really having to upgrade anything. It's just somewhat helpful to grab some of these skills when you're able to. But I upgrade basically anything to do with the shotgun or your light source. So some of those skills grant you a chance to regain a light charge, so I think that's worth grabbing, although to be fair, light isn't all that uncommon either. But something I do wish I knew sooner was how Alan Wake's skills work. You probably know by now that the yellow paint that appears when Alan shines a flashlight on it leads you over to a word of power, which you then shine your flashlight on and it gives you it. But you'll also notice that even though you have 9 words of power or however many you have to use, some of these categories are still locked. Well, that's because each word of power that you find applies to a specific category. And that's what leads me to some of the items you really don't want to miss. I think the most important thing to have in Alan Wake 2 is a maxed out inventory. And getting Alan's upgrades for his inventory relies on some of those specific words of power. Which, by the way, for your inventory, you have to actually organize inventory to make room for what you want to pick up. It doesn't just let you pick up the hunting rifle if you have 4 open spaces. You need 4 horizontal spaces in a row. And it's not like it tells you how many spaces that rifle requires to be available, so that part is kind of annoying where if you've come across some recent Resident Evil games, your inventory just automatically made room for the item you're picking up. I wish I had known that sooner because I was sitting here discarding things for the rifle, thinking I didn't have room. And don't forget that the shoebox and the save rooms allow you to store items so that you don't have to end up discarding them when you get full. So here for this section, we're going to be going over some minor location spoilers, but I'm not giving any details for the location or why we're here, just what we need to grab those upgrades. So to get all of the inventory upgrades, the first one can be found for Saga once she returns to Cauldron Lake in the story for the second time. You'll eventually be led to the general store, and in the same room as the shotgun hanging on the wall, you will find your first inventory upgrade lying on a filing cabinet, which is super hard to miss. This takes place in Return 2. It's like the second level of the game. After Return 2, you will be on a beach, and if you head along the opened up portion of it and crawl through the other side, you will find a cult stash with a super easy puzzle. Just push the buttons in the order that they light up in, and you will get your second inventory upgrade. Now for the next inventory upgrade for Saga, you won't be able to find it until all the way at Return 5. So pretty far ahead, feel free to pause the video or skip ahead if you're not there yet. And after handling some things in Bright Falls, by now you should have come across the bolt cutters, and you're going to need them to open up the gate near the shack with the Fresh Seafood logo painted on it. It's over towards the docks, and this is where you will find a cult stash which needs the code 697 to unlock it. So for Alan, you'll want to find words of power that apply specifically to the words of stuff category. This whole section probably being his best upgrades to unlock, especially the inventory upgrade. The first word of stuff that I found wasn't until all the way in Initiation 5, so pretty deep into the game, but I mean also you didn't really need that much inventory room prior to this. So we are in the Ocean View Hotel, and in the ballroom you will find a word of power location in the center of the room if you look up directly above the bar. And for some of the best weapons, the reason I said to grab the shotgun skills is because the shotgun is the best weapon in here. So actually I guess you don't even really need to upgrade those because it starts out really powerful already, especially close range where you're gonna one-shot almost anybody that you come across. Even some of the mini bosses will die in 2 shots. Alan Wake's shotgun is obtained through just following the story. I don't believe it's even possible to miss, but before that you will come across Saga Anderson's shotgun at the general store in Cauldron Lake, which we already went over. You'll come here in return 2. When you come here, you'll find the shotgun hanging on the back wall, and the code for the lock can be found behind the front counter of the store, which is 739. I'm also going to leave the codes for each weapon and where to get them down in the description. But that's pretty much it. If you have any extra tips for Alan Wake 2 or anything involving your gameplay for Alan Wake 2, leave them down in the comments. Thank you to NVIDIA for sponsoring this video. See ya.